All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have somebody super special in the house. Well, kind of in my house, coming through my computer. We have Mr. Duke Baxter in the softball and baseball world. And if you don't know who Duke is, you're under a rock, you're not on social media, and you're missing out because the value that this guy brings to both sports, softball and baseball, is phenomenal. I am guilty of taking some of your drills, but at the same time, I know you put them there because you want coaches to take them because you're building a better ball player. So, right away, I have to ask though, Duke, I have seen Malcolm. Now, is Malcolm like your birth certificate name or?
That's the birth certificate name, yes. Driver's
Okay.
license name, but yes.
All right, cool. I like that. So, I want to get into this because my platform is kind of just grown in a way where it's giving coaches a place to tell their story, but also to talk about what they do. And then we're going to get into some hot topics like travel ball, like what you do in travel ball tryouts, as well as travel ball breakups, because there's some value that probably needs to be spoke about because there's real things that are way beyond just being a routine. But with that, Duke, I'm going to hand you the show, and I would love to hear like how it all started for you.
Okay, well, thanks so much for having me on the show. This is awesome. Kudos to you as well. I watch your podcast. I see who's on there. I watch how you interview them, and I think it's really special. And the passion that you have for the sport, you can definitely tell that it goes through the camera when you're talking. So thank you for you. It all started when I was younger, 6 years old, just playing the game, loving the game. Not really. I don't really know what it was about the game that I loved so much. I think it was just the being part of a team, the challenge of the game. I had an amazing coach when I was younger, and he was a good family friend. And he's like, oh, I have a 7 and 8 year old team, but we need one more player. Would you play? So of course my mom's like, if he wants to, and so of course I did. And being the youngest one and the smallest one was really challenging. Strikeout after strikeout after strikeout. Practicing. But it just led into more and more. And every coach I had was just I could rattle off all 11 coaches that I've ever had because they were all so impactful. Like I didn't go out to ice cream much as a kid, but my coach would take us out to ice cream after a big win or just after a game. We'd go to the Polar Cub and we would get the chocolate covered, vanilla on and I was only ever allowed to get one scoop of vanilla ice cream in a cup if we got it. But when Coach Tyberski took us out there, man, it was whatever you wanted to get. And but through high school and college, just again had great coaches and loved the game and the challenge of it. And then I always wanted to be a professional baseball player. Everybody would always kind of like chuckle, like, back then it was, you wanted to be a police officer or a teacher or something a little bit more stable. And being a professional baseball player was something that people would say, but not really mean, but I really meant it. And, got to go on to play in college in Florida and, got to play 3 years of professional baseball. But when the time came that it was over, it then became like, now what do I do? Right? Like, I didn't know what I wanted to. I just, my track was just to play in the major leagues. And now here I am, not in the major leagues, not knowing what to do. I'm 26 years old and, started zoned, so in 2001, we started zoned and, we have an indoor facility. And I always loved coaching kids when I was younger. When I was in high school, our coach would always bring us back. When we went to college, he'd bring us back for the summers and we'd coach. And I was like, man, this is awesome. Like so fun. Then in pro ball, we'd always have to run some players clinics. And I just knew that this was my thing. Somehow some part of it was just the coaching and being in the game and teaching the game. And so that's how it started. And 21 years later, here I am still doing the same exact stuff that I love doing. It's just grown into much more now. So it's not just private lessons, but it's classes, it's teams. We have our own scholarship now. We just started our own non-for-profit. So we're just taking the sport and just creating a much bigger ecosystem now. So, with social media, it's allowed us to grow even more and to be able to share some of our knowledge and our drills and, everything that we do here at Zone and Dominate the Diamond. And it's not just the players now with Dominate the Diamond, it's the coaches. How do we help the coaches be better coaches? How do we help the players be better players? How do we help the moms and dads help their sons and daughters, that maybe never played before, but want to go out in the backyard and do something with their kids? Like, well, here's some drills. Here's how you can help them. So that's how it started, and that's where we are.
That's awesome. You said 21 years, and I've been doing this for like I said 25 or over 20 years, and my middle son was like, Mom, it's 2.5 decades. Like, that's how long you've been doing it. He's like, it sounds so much better when you say that. And I'm like, well, coming from like he was 15 at the time, I was like, I should probably start saying that. But just when you said that, that triggered like memories, like where was I in 2001? All those things, and how none of this was out there. Like,
Right.
the instructor I had was a pitcher for the men's fast pitch Team USA team. Like, that was pretty much, other than my high school coach that would go take a class and learn how to throw and then say, hey, I'll give you lessons to babysit.
Right.
So just to know that your experience brought you to that place of like, it was the giving back was kind of the spark.
Mhm.
And now you're in this place, like you said, ecosystem, huge, because they always say it takes a village. And I feel like us as instructors in today's day and age, with all the capabilities to come into people's houses on a screen, I feel like you're doing it in such a proactive and constructed way that when you do share stuff, like it's almost like you're making a grand announcement, like every time I watch your drills, I'm like, yes, like let's go. Some of the boys stuff I still carried over to the girl stuff. I'm just like, it's just smaller fields, smaller bases, as far as footage and stuff. But I wanted to ask you, when you were growing up and you decided at that time you wanted to be a professional baseball player, was college in there, or did you want to just straight out of high school? Like, how did you see that plan?
That's a great question. There wasn't many guys that went straight to the pros from high school, right? Back then it was like
Mhm.
not really, and I never thought of it. I knew I wasn't that good to where that would happen. So I knew college
Okay.
was in the cards, but high school and studying hard and that stuff was not in the cards, right? Like I thought that college was going to take me to the next level, and if you were good enough, you were just going to be able to play in college. But that wasn't the fact, right? So I had a hard time getting into college. I had a hard time getting into schools, and it was more, it kind of like floated. I didn't really put much time and effort into my schooling. I put it into baseball and working out and trying to get better, and they didn't have training facilities and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So you were just kind of trying to figure out how to do things. But I did go to a junior college down in Florida, and that's kind of where it all happened. Coach Blackie met me up here. I was in high school. I was a senior, and it was like, where are you going to school? I'm like, I don't know. Right. And he's like, hey, I got a spot on the roster down here in Florida. I can't guarantee anything, but this is the opportunity. And I was like, okay, I'm going. And that's when it all happened. He's like, you have to carry a 3.0 GPA. You have to, and from there I got a 3.9. Everything I did was just
Dang.
built around that, right? Like, oh, he told me in order to play baseball, I had to do this in order to do it. And that was really like my focus was so like, and so that's where that went. But I was just hoping it was going to happen, just working hard, and hopefully playing professional baseball was a byproduct of everything else. But every year that I was in college, I wasn't thinking to myself, am I going pro next year? Am I going to sign next year? Like that wasn't the way my brain was thinking it. Like now you can sign after every year at junior college, you can
Right.
sign out of high school, you can sign. Like it wasn't like that in my brain. It was more after my junior year, hopefully yes, and then after my senior year, hopefully yes, or else that's kind of like the last draw. And it's definitely no. But it was just enjoying the process all the time. I loved working hard, playing hard, and I got the opportunity after my senior year of at the University of North Florida to go play for the Madison Black Wolf, and I finished off with the Somerset Patriots in 2002, and so it was cool. It was really fun.
What position did you play?
I was I went down to junior college as a third baseman. The
Okay.
second baseman got hurt. He blew out his knee, so I went to play second base. But then in Pro Bowl, I pretty much was short and third again. So I kind of
Okay.
all over in the infield. Usually,
That's good.
yeah.
I like that. I know our oldest boy, all through high school up until towards the end, junior year, he became an outfielder. He was always a first baseman, and they already had a first baseman because we had moved cities. And he's like, "I'll do whatever it needs to be done for the team." And he went to outfield, and now he's playing JUCO ball as an outfielder. So he loves it. So
That's awesome.
yeah, but I love that because like when I ask you guys to come on the show, I only allow myself to go so far down the tunnel because, like you said, that passion comes through. And I want to be surprised just like my listeners are. So that's why I was like, I have no idea what position he played. I mean, he could have pitched for all I know, and you're probably sitting there going, like, Callie, I'm like too short. Like, I don't know what you're saying. But, it's cool that you also said you enjoyed the process because this is where I feel like enjoying the process gets lost in translation of all the I's to dot and the T's to cross. So, since zoned also helps parents, what are you telling your parents when they are going through a tough moment with their kid who is one heck of a ball player, but this kid's just not seeing the bigger picture, or maybe they don't quite yet understand how to fail forward?
Yeah.
What kind of guidance do you offer your parents through your zoned company?
Well, I think that's an awesome question because we deal with that a lot. And I try to, being a father of four, I have a daughter and three boys. So I've been through
They,
the whole journey of sports and gymnastics and softball and baseball and football and everything, right? And I think a lot of times it's slowing down, and the parents that weren't athletes don't understand it as much as the parents, that were athletes, right? Like my son will go into a lesson and he'll go with the coach, and I'm sitting out here having coffee, hanging out with the people at the desk. Like I'm not all in his grill and watching and make sure, why are you letting him do this? How come he's doing that? It's like, I'm off. Like, but you see a ton of parents that are, and they're all in the drill, and they're doing more correcting than you are. And you're the coach. And it's like, listen, this is my time. This is your time. But I also talk about communication, right? I work with the players on how to communicate to mom and dad, because mom and dad are just trying to do the best they can. So I say the number one thing is on the first day, parents, ask your son or daughter what kind of fan you want them to be. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I know that my daughter doesn't mind if I'm clapping. Come on, Madeline, you can do this. I know my son Brady doesn't want me to do that at all. Brady doesn't want to hear me in the stands. He just wants to play. If I'm clapping, he knows it's me, but it's embarrassing to him the other way. Tyler loves when I'm screaming. I can be ripping the fence down. Let's go, Ty. You got this. And he's just as juiced up as I am. So I think that's a big question to ask. What kind of fan do you want them to be? Maybe they don't want to hear your voice. Maybe they want to hear you just, here you go, Tyler. Like, right? Because as parents, we only want to do what's best for them, but not if we don't know what that is. If every time I get on the fence and start screaming for Brady and he's doing this, I'm taking him out of his mojo. Like I'm
yes.
totally taking him out of his game. So I think that there's a lot of those things. We talk about the car ride home. We talk about, all those things with the parents of how they can help their kids off the field, which then helps them so much more on the field. Right. So that's the kind of things that we're doing on our side to try to communicate so that we understand the kids, we understand the families, they know what to expect from us, we know what to expect from them and the players. The players can't come late. If they do, they have to text us. The parents don't text us. The kids themselves do, even if they're only 11. Hey, Coach Duke, I'm running a couple of minutes late. No problem, Mikey. It's fine. Like, take your time. I know he doesn't drive. It's like,
Right.
It's just teaching the respect part of it and a little bit of accountability. Not that you're going to rip, scream at them or like, okay, no problem. Like I said, we know what it's like. We have kids. So sometimes so many things get in the way of, oh, shoot, I got to take him there. And I got this. Like, there's so much going on. So those are some things that we do here at Zoned. I think that really helps alleviate some of that tension or some of that stress between the coaches, the other parents with each other, the kids and stuff like that.
No, I like that. You're much nicer than me because I tell my girls, like, in lessons, this is what I found to be peaceful is I just did this intensive training on Saturday. It was 2 hours. They drove in from El Paso, Texas. So it was a 6 hour drive. And the sister played D1 ball. She's the one that booked it for her little sister. And I was like, hey, you're educated. You get this. You know how to support her. You are more than welcome to step in and just listen and look. She's like, no, I'm good. And I find that when I'm like, hey, you can come up here, they're usually like, oh, no, I'm good. Even if they're not like educated in the sense of they played the sport before. But my clients that see their parents start to video them while, I'm working them at the end of the tunnel, the other end, they are like, oh my gosh. And I'll just say, stop. This is you training for that coach that you just spotted in the stands and is watching you. If you can't handle your parents taking video of you, you're not going to be able to handle that scout watching you, taking notes on you. And it's like all of a sudden some clicks because I feel like with, softball in comparison to baseball, especially having two boys and a girl, I feel like baseball recruiting process is a little bit longer, but softball is like, like we got to move, like it's going to happen fast.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I do like that. I'm going to probably steal that from you too, just like some of your drills.
Good.
But I know you offer it. You're good. And that's one of the things I love about the big conferences, like the NFCA and the ABCA. I have found that people that want to hoard their drills don't do very well at these conventions. They are like behind the scenes, they're hiding, they're not coming out like Bet. Now that you and I have talked, I was like, I'm gonna make a point to go see you and introduce my husband to you. Like, dude, this is B. You got it like that, So it's gonna happen. It'll be on social, I'm sure. But how do you handle a parent who also coaches their kid like in team sport, but maybe their kid is seeing you and you're giving all this great advice, but you're not seeing that parent take it and transferring it on the field? Are you just kind of like, fine, if you're not going to take it, you're not going to take it? Or do you take it as a coachable moment? Yes, it's to another adult, but it's like almost you're coaching another coach. Because you did talk about coach support.
That's so good because I like when people videotape. Like I'll videotape my lessons a lot or certain videos, and I'll send them to the girls or to the guys and be like, hey, this is what we did, this is what we worked on, so that they can use that. I don't mind if a parent videotapes, but it's got to be used in a appropriate way to where that kid doesn't think my dad's going to drill me for the next 5 days in the car because look at this bat swing. Look at like, that's not what video's for. Like videoing your kid is not to reprimand them when they do it wrong. It's to, okay, what were the things that you guys worked on? Oh, okay. Yeah. In this video, you were doing this incorrectly. And look how over time, and this drill is what helped you fix that. So let's work on these. So if that's the conversation, that's what I have with the parents. This isn't to break down all the bad swings. That's not what you're videotaping them for. So I think that bridging that gap with them is very important because this happened like 3 weeks ago. I had my very first lesson with this one girl, 16 years old, stud, like really good. And her dad was all over the cage. First lesson doesn't really. So I'm going through and I saw her just doing one of these after every swing, looking at her dad. I said, time out for a second. I said, you guys don't, let's get together. I'm like, you guys don't really know me that well. I said, and you're coming to me because I have something to offer you that's helpful, I guess. That's why you're here. I said, but I cannot have you looking at your dad every swing and Mr. So-and-so, can you please sit down and let me do my job? If not, it's totally fine. I will refund you your money and you guys need to find another coach because that's not. And he's like, no. I'm fine. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'm just saying. And now it's like the lessons are amazing. The girl's so focused and locked in, and it's not because you can't take a swing and look and see what your mom and dad are doing and then take one swing. It's like, you don't need immediate approval of yes or no. Like, so, but the dad did email me after he said, thank you so much for that. No one's ever put me in my place to where I realized the detriment that I said, no. I said, don't think of it as a detriment, right? Like you're doing what you think is right and you're just trying to help. He's like, no, I mean, my daughter was like, wow, Dad, I've been having great lessons. And I do like you watching me, but I don't like. And so their relationship was like, it was a different, I have goosebumps talking about it because I'm like, that's what it's all about. Like, I wasn't being mean to either one, but I was like, hey, if you want your daughter to be as good as she can be, this can't happen. And if you want
Yeah.
to be an awesome dad that's supporting your daughter, this can't happen. Let's try this. And if it doesn't work, okay. But if it does, and it's been amazing. So
Yeah. It changed the whole dynamic.
I know I don't
What
know
it
if I
sounds
could have
like.
done that when I was 27. Like that's the thing of over time and just being able to. I've seen it so many times now that I'm like, if I don't say something, I'm gonna have to deal with this for the next 2 months or 3 months or 4 months, and I'm not
Yep.
helping her out. But now that I'm older, I'm like, no, I want to help her out right now because the faster I can make this, the better. And she and the dad, it's like we have like a great relate. It's like it's awesome, you
That's
know.
good. I mean, I had a good call last week with a fellow coach here in the city, and she was feeling frustrated with a couple of her clients just not feeling like they wanted to put the work in, and she could tell they weren't doing their drills and stuff like that. And I was just like, let them go. Let them go. You have the talk with the parents, and it's not like a let them go, get out of my tunnel, blah. It's like, hey, right now something else is going on. She's really not engaged. I really feel like I'm wasting your time. You're spending money for this. Like, it's on you. Ultimately, it's up to you. But at this point, your daughter's not really learning anything. Like, one girl would just break down and cry. So I've learned, like yourself, with time we gain wisdom. We pick up on that body language, and we'll discover real quick. It's either they had a really tough day before sessions, or something bigger is going on, or they just don't want to do it anymore. And I'm a big fan of like finding your passion and finding what you're good at and just putting everything in that. So I do have girls that work with me in pitching, and they'll work with me for like 6 months, and they'll have their parent call me, hey, gotta talk to you. I'm like, yeah, what's up? Well, so and so just doesn't want to pitch anymore. It's not you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what does she want to do? I'm like, well, she wants to go all in at catching, or she wants to go all in. And I'm like, let's go. And they are like completely shocked. I see them around the dirt, and they come up, give me a hug. And it's almost like they feel like the weight of the world should tell them I should be mad at them, but I'm not, because I helped that baby girl figure out what gets her going.
Yeah,
And I'm like, you exhausted all your resources, you tried, and it just didn't click. And through all of that, you found what you wanted to do.
yeah,
So
that's awesome.
I like
That's
that.
great.
No, I like the wisdom that you and I are bringing to the table today, because it's going to lead me right to this next one. Because one of the things that I am known for is supporting parents who coach their kids. This is a big thing. I work with people all over the United States. I do like, basically coaching athlete, dad or mom, athlete mentoring. Like, we do stuff online and stuff, and they have homework. And I've listened to a couple sports psychologists before, and they think they'll say, no way should a parent ever coach their kid, because all your kid is going to hear, instead of, hey, stay off the high ones, or hey, be ready to go, they hear, take the trash out, shut the front door, you know. And both my husband and I were both coaches. We both coached our kids, and we both kind of experienced everything you could ever imagine as coaches coaching their own kids, parents. And I wanted to know, like, for you, you're a dad of four. If you ever had the experience of coaching your kids, if you did, how did that go? And if you didn't, why didn't you coach your kids?
That's a great question and one that I love. I've coached my kids the entire time. I coached my son Matthew since he was 8 until he's now 18. And it was the saddest day of both of our lives, the day of
Ugh,
our last game, right? Like,
yeah.
and just him loving, like, I have a rule, right? I have a rule that I'm their dad in the house. Once I
Mm,
get into the car, my hat is on, and I'm their coach. I'm not their I'm their dad, but I'm in dad's in coach mode. When they're in the seat, they can either have their hat on, which means they'll talk about baseball, or their hat
they're
will be off.
athletes.
Their hat will
Yep.
be off, and then I just talk to myself. I do my thing, whatever, and that's we get out of the car, we walk to the field, and now his hat is on. My hat is on, and I'm coach, and he's player. Boom, on the field. Do I give him a hug still? Do I? Yes, but there is zero Like everybody knows he calls me coach. My little one,
Mhm.
the other ones all called me coach, or my littlest one, he still can. He still would call me dad and be like, I mean coach. And I just like giggle, like whatever. It's not that big of a deal. But I feel like if you do it the right way, and I'm very conscious of that, the thing that I get a lot of times, oh, let me finish that story about the hat. Once the game is over, I get into the car and my hat gets off and I whip it onto the dashboard and I'm only dad. They can then either have their hat on because they want to talk about the game, what they did, how they did, whatever, or they take their hat off and we don't talk about the game at all. So I call it the hat method, and it's got about 17 million views on all over the place. I've been doing it since my son was 8, so it was 10 years ago I started it, and it's the hat method. And the kid is in total control of what happens in the car ride home. You know what I'm saying? So when the game's
Mhm.
over, if his hat's off, I can't even talk about the game. Hey, what are we doing later on? What are we? So there's no critiquing. If he wants the hat on, I'm talking to him as his dad, not as his coach. How come you didn't swing at the first pitch how come you missed the ground ball? We don't talk about it. I write
Right.
notes down and I'll journal at night and be like, oh man, I want to make sure that I want to, that's how I internalize. A lot of people can't do that, but I found for me, that's how I separate being a dad and a coach at the same exact time, and I just, it works for me. The thing that I get is, you're so lucky that you're playing third base. It's only because your dad owns the baseball facility.
Ooh,
Or,
ooh.
I'm lucky you're only batting second and I'm not because your dad's the coach. But I talk to my kids in the house. My wife and I are very big on this as if daddy's going to coach you and I'm going to be the coach, these are the things that are going to happen. This is going to be said. This is going to be da-da-da. One of the things daddy's never going to do is if you deserve to be on the second team, I'm putting you on the second team. You're not going to be on the elite team just because. You're not going to bat third just because. You're not going to play shortstop just because. Like those things aren't going to happen. So if you ever hear them in your head or you hear them from a friend, they're not true. This is how I want you to handle that. Da 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 da. So it's never happened. People have said it, but my kids know how to deal with it if it is said. They know it's not true. Dad's not batting me fourth because of this. Because my one son would bat ninth, my other son bats second. He didn't play shortstop. This one wasn't good enough for the first team. He was in the beginning, but he was a little bit smaller, and he played on the second team and loved it. Like, so Daddy doesn't do this, this, and this. We're gonna do it right, and you have to earn it. So it's like, I have nothing to hide, and they know that I'm as honest and as truthful as possible, and it is what it is. So now when their friend says, "Oh, you're so lucky, your dad's," they just smile and they just give them a high five, and they're like, and they know that it's not, So,
Yeah.
but I love
Yeah.
coaching.
Because,
I would not trade it for anything. I
oh,
love
yeah.
coaching, and I love coaching them, and it's like, I just love coaching. So it'd be crazy for me not to coach them.
Well,
Like,
and the way I look at it is you were probably doing it long before you ever had them.
oh yes,
It's like my husband and I, it's like I started coaching at 18 just to give back to the community. And then I did it throughout college. And then I did it throughout my ultrasound career. Like it has just been around. And my mom coached me. Like I didn't know any way other than to coach. But we do have coaches in the baseball and the softball community that do coach so their kid can play. And that's where I'm like, those are two different type of parent coaches.
yes.
Because I guarantee you, those parents that are coaching their kids are not getting in the car and having a degree of separation, allowing a boundary to be formed. I'm either going to be coach or I'm going to be mom. I'm going to be coach or I'm going to be dad. They're not doing it. They're just like, bleh.
And it's so scarring to the kid. Think about this. My dad's the coach. He bats me third and he plays me shortstop, and I'm the worst kid on the team. You don't think I know that I'm the worst kid on the team and that my dad's batting me third and putting me at shortstop, and all my friends or the kids are all saying, how is it making that kid feel? You talk about the opposite, like now he's in school, now he has no self-esteem, now he knows it's like false, it's like fake. And then all of a sudden he goes to a team that's not his dad's. He doesn't make a team, he just quits. And now you have a kid that doesn't even play anymore because it was set up for him so perfectly that he doesn't know how to handle any
Adversity
kind of failure at all. Yeah. So that's
which is great. No, that's taking me. I mean, this is such an organic conversation because I was in here like, okay, next thing we're going to is failure. All right, guys, so you made it through part 1 of my interview with Coach Duke Baxter, also the owner of Zone Sports Academy. He's a phenomenal baseball and softball coach who's offering nuggets not only for the athletes, but also for the parents. And why would he do that? Well, simply because he's a parent who also coaches too. So why not rinse and repeat, right? Why not offer something to others that's working? So if you want to lean into part 2, make sure you're following and you're subscribing to the podcast so you don't miss out when it drops. Thanks for listening, and God bless.